let's talk about type hints. As we have talked here, Python does not have data types for variables. So if I have a variable a, I can put whatever values there, whatever types of values. So I can put a string there, and later I can put an integer there, and so on. But what we can do from the version 3.5 of Python, we can use type hints. And what the type hint says is that basically you can give some hints what kind of values you expect it to have. And yeah, it's available since Python 3.5. And for example, in function definition, we can hint what type of values we expect in certain parameters. And the return type we can also hint by specifying the type after kind of arrow here. The type hint actually doesn't check the value when the code is executed. So if I write that I expect a string, but instead pass integer there, nothing actually happens, because as the name says, it's a type hint, not a required type. But IDE environments where you write code, those can give you some hints for kind of errors if you pass something which is not expected. So it can be convenient to use those, so you can maybe see some problems before you execute the code, or during writing the code you can also see some hints or points what you should change or what's wrong. Here's an example. So there is a function greeting. It expects one value, name, and we have written the type of the value we are expecting. So the name variable or the name parameter expects to see string value. And we write the colon, and after the colon we write the type name or the name of the type we are expecting in this parameter. And after the parameters we can point out also the return value of this function. And currently this function also returns a string. And the type hint here is written before the colon, which usually ends the definition line. So before that we will add this kind of arrow, and we will write the type which the function returns. And yeah, the parameter type is written after the parameter name. And this currently returns hello and adds the name inside this in this return string. And yeah, currently the parameter and the return type both are strings. We can have more complex types also. Currently it's a list of integers. And as was pointed out, they don't give an error if a wrong type is given. So for example, if this list of integers is expected and I pass there only one string, nothing happens, in a sense that the definition itself doesn't give us any errors. We get an error because it tries to loop over the string. Then actually the looping itself works, because then we get every single symbol, but we cannot add one to a symbol. So basically it's a string plus integer. So we still get an error, but the error comes from the code, because we were trying to do something which is not allowed for this type of value. But the type hint itself doesn't give us any errors. So in the languages where we have data types for variables, then we can get error already when we have written the code and where we call out this list add one with a wrong data type. But in Python, currently, it's not the case. I mean, it can happen that in certain versions, those type hints are required in sense that if you write the type, you cannot pass something else and you get an error already calling out the function with the wrong types of arguments. So, and yeah, here is an example. So we can call out the function with a string. In PyCharm, or probably in different programs where we can write code, you can get a warning. So for example, in PyCharm, we can get a warning which says that it expected type list int, but got string instead. So depending on your setup, this can be red and peak in your IDE, so you can see the error, or you can even turn off those warnings so you don't see this warning at all. So, but yeah, the idea is that type hints give us some pointers, warnings during writing code. Also, what happens is that if we have type hint for the variable, the IDE can help us with what we can do with this variable. So for example, which methods we can use. If this is a string, then if I write the variable name and write dot, then after the dot I can see string methods, because the IDE already knows that this variable is a string. If it's a list instead, then I can see the list methods and so on.